It was one of those half-dream states when your mind is just lucid enough to register what's happening around you, but your body is too heavy to respond. I remember hearing her voice, soft, slurred from sleep, but clear enough. Luca. It wasn't my name, and it wasn't the first time I'd heard it. That night, I didn't move. I stayed still, heart slow, breath shallow like I was trying not to scare the truth away. She turned over, still half asleep, and nestled closer. My wife. Madison. My best friend. My partner. At least, that's what I thought we were. I didn't say anything. I didn't shake her awake or ask who the hell Luca was. I didn't accuse her. I just laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to pretend I hadn't heard what I just heard. But my mind was racing. And that name, it echoed like an old wound I didn't even know I had. The next morning, I got up before her, made coffee, fed the dog, looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror, and saw someone who looked tired, unsure. I'd been noticing little things for a while, things that didn't quite add up. A new password on her phone, a sudden burst of gym motivation, the way she started pulling away when we kissed, just slightly, like she was somewhere else. But love is a funny thing. It makes you blind, and then it makes you complicit in your own blindness. So I chalked it up to stress. Her job, my hours, the ebb and flow of marriage. I wanted to believe that's all it was. Until I heard his name. When she came down that morning, she was all sunshine and affection, kissed me on the cheek, asked what I wanted to do that weekend, laughed at something on her phone. She didn't know anything had changed, but it had. Something inside me shifted. That night, after she fell asleep again, I opened her laptop. I knew the password, her childhood dog's name. She never changed it. Maybe she didn't think I would ever go looking. Maybe she believed I wouldn't dare. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. Just something. Confirmation that I was wrong. That there was no Luca. That I was paranoid. But then I found the folder. Hidden in plain sight. Titled Inspo. Just that. Inspo. Inside, dozens of screenshots. Messages. Photos. Him. Luca. He had one of those curated faces. Too perfect jawline, sun-kissed skin, the kind of eyes that seemed to always be smirking. His Instagram was private, but the screenshots were enough. DMs, conversations, jokes, private language. And then the pictures, some of them of him, shirtless in mirror selfies. Others were of her, ones I hadn't taken. Ones I hadn't even seen. Taken in a hotel room that wasn't ours. A restaurant we'd never been to together. A weekend I thought she was with her sister. She kept screenshots of their messages like they were mementos. One stuck with me. Him texting. One day, you'll stop pretending with him. And her reply? I already have. He just doesn't know it yet. My throat went dry reading that. I had to sit down. I couldn't breathe right. That wasn't a flirty secret. That was the truth. The kind that shatters something. I didn't wake her up that night either. I just sat on the living room floor with my hands in my hair, feeling everything at once. Rage, grief, disbelief. I thought about the holidays. The vows. The time we danced barefoot in our kitchen when we didn't have furniture yet. I thought about how I held her when her mom passed. How she once called me her home. Was I just a placeholder? Somewhere safe while she waited for a different life? The next day, I called in sick. She thought I was just exhausted. Said I needed rest. She kissed me on the forehead and left for work, completely unaware that I had seen everything. And still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I Googled him. Luca Navarro. That was the name on his business page. Model/entrepreneur. Of course. The kind of man who said things like invest in vibes and sold coaching packages to Instagram followers. And there it was. His face. All over the internet. All over her phone, her laptop, her heart apparently. He wasn't even local. Lived in Miami. Flew out a lot, according to his posts. Which meant she traveled to see him. Which meant this wasn't just an emotional affair. It was physical, deliberate, something real enough to build a folder around. I checked flight records. Ours were joint. She had booked 2 solo getaways this year that didn't make sense before. Now they did. She was seeing him while I waited at home thinking I was giving her space. The betrayal wasn't just that she loved someone else. It was that she let me keep loving her while she did. I started collecting everything. Screenshots. Messages. Photos. I didn't know what for. Divorce? Maybe. Confrontation? Probably. But right then, I needed to hold on to the proof, because the gaslighting part of me was already whispering, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe there's an explanation. But screenshots don't lie. Dreams might not be real. But she said his name like it was carved in her. I found an email to him. One I couldn't unsee. She'd written, "I wish you could be the one I wake up next to. I hate pretending with him. It's killing me." Pretending. That word again. She didn't just cheat on me. She rewrote our marriage while still living in it. That night, I drove to the old coffee shop we used to visit when we were dating. It was closed, but I sat in the parking lot, watching the dark windows, remembering who we used to be. I wasn't perfect. I'll never claim I was. I worked a lot, missed dinners, took her for granted in small ways I didn't even notice. But I never lied. I never strayed. I never made her feel small. I thought that counted for something. Apparently, it didn't. She came home late that night, said her meeting ran long, gave me a kiss on the head, asked if I wanted to watch something together. I said I was tired, which wasn't a lie. But the truth was, I didn't know how to look at her anymore without seeing him in the background. I waited 3 more days. 3 days of pretending. 3 days of sitting across from her at dinner, watching her smile and talk about clients and deadlines and some new show she wanted to binge together. 3 days of her reaching for my hand while I kept mine still. Of her kissing me goodnight, not knowing I'd lie awake long after, replaying her messages to him in my mind like a broken loop. I don't know why I waited. Maybe I needed to be sure. Maybe I hoped she'd confess. Maybe I just didn't want it to be true. But by the 4th morning, I couldn't take it anymore. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, still in her robe, sipping coffee like she had no idea that our entire world was already in ruins. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She looked up, smile soft. "Of course." "Who's Luca?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw anything. I just asked. Her eyes blinked once. Twice. Too slowly. I don't know what you mean." I nodded, gently. "You said his name in your sleep last week." I didn't think much of it. "But then I found your folder. On your laptop." Silence. She set the coffee cup down carefully, like she was afraid it might shatter if she held it too tight. "I can explain," she said finally, her voice shaking. I shook my head. "No, Madison. You don't get to explain. You get to tell the truth." She sat down at the table across from me, her hands shaking now. "It started a year ago. I didn't plan it. I didn't mean for it to be anything. But it is something," I said. She didn't answer that, just stared at her hands. I felt invisible. "I know that sounds selfish, but you were always working. You stopped noticing things." I let out a long breath. "So you found someone who did." She nodded, slowly. "He made me feel seen. And alive." The words felt like blades. "I saw you too, Madison," I said. "I saw you every single day. But maybe not the way you wanted to be seen." Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't fall. I didn't mean to fall for him. But once I did, I didn't know how to come back. "You kept the folder," I said. "Like a scrapbook. Like you were proud of it." Her face crumbled. I didn't know how to let it go. We sat there in silence. And for the first time since this all began, I realized something. She wasn't evil. She wasn't malicious. But she was selfish. She'd been living 2 lives. One where she smiled and made dinner and cuddled on the couch, and one where she flew to Miami to see him and whispered his name in her sleep. I asked her the question I'd been avoiding. "Did you ever think about ending it? With him?" She looked away. That was my answer. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because I was angry, but because I couldn't lie next to someone who'd already left me in her heart. She texted me from upstairs. "I never wanted to hurt you. I'm sorry." I didn't respond. Because sorry didn't undo what she said in that email. It didn't undo the hotel rooms, the screenshots, the pretending. It didn't undo the way I felt like a stranger in my own life. The next day, I met with a lawyer. I didn't know what I wanted yet. Not really. I just knew I couldn't keep living in a half-built lie. I couldn't keep being the man she came home to while dreaming of someone else. The lawyer asked if I had proof. I nodded. "Plenty." "Do you want to take everything?" he asked. "The house? The accounts? There's a case for financial misconduct if she used joint money for the affair." I thought about it. And then I said, "I don't want to destroy her. I just want out." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll keep it clean. But we'll protect you." When I got home, she was waiting for me at the door, her eyes swollen from crying. "I'll leave," she said. "You shouldn't be the one to go. I'll pack a bag tonight." I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't care, but because part of me still did. That's the cruelest thing about betrayal. It doesn't make you stop loving someone. It just makes you stop recognizing them. She walked upstairs without another word. The quiet was deafening. I stayed up that night reading our old messages. The ones from when we first met. The way she used to say my name. The way we talked about building a life together. I remembered the night I proposed. Her tears. The way she leapt into my arms. I remembered our first Christmas. Our first fight. Our first road trip where we got lost and laughed about it for hours. I remembered every version of her. Every version of us. And now I had to unlearn all of it. A week later, we filed. No drama. No screaming match in court. She looked down when the judge asked if everything was agreed upon. I nodded. She followed. It was over. Just like that. She moved out the following weekend. Left a note on the fridge. You were never the problem. You were just too kind. And I was too broken to appreciate it. That note stayed on the fridge for months. Not because I couldn't take it down, but because it reminded me of who I was. Someone who loved honestly. Who tried. Who stayed. Even when the other person didn't. The house echoed when she left. It wasn't just the silence. It was the absence of her scent in the hallway. The toothbrush no longer beside mine. The half-folded blanket she used to pull over her legs while watching old reruns. Her coffee mug in the dishwasher, the one with the little chip on the handle she never threw out. All gone. And me? Still here. It felt like standing in the wreckage after a quiet storm. One that didn't bring thunder, but hollowed out everything just the same. I started sleeping in the bed again. At first, it felt like trespassing. Like she might come back and ask what I was doing there. But the truth was, she wasn't coming back. That's the hardest part of healing. Accepting what's not going to happen. She wasn't going to apologize again. She wasn't going to undo it. She wasn't going to wake up and say my name, not because she was dreaming, but because she meant it. She'd whispered his name, and all I'd ever whispered was love. One night, a couple months after she moved out, I pulled out my old journal, the one I used to write in when we were newly married. I found entries filled with hope, with goals, with lines like, I don't know how I got this lucky. And later, I hope she always looks at me the way she did tonight. Reading those felt like touching a photo of someone who's still alive, but gone from your life forever. That version of her, that version of me, they existed once. But now, just ghosts and ink. I thought about calling her. Once. It was late. I'd had 2 glasses of wine. A song came on that reminded me of us. And for a moment, I thought maybe we could talk. Maybe we could find some closure. But then I remembered the folder. I remembered how she chose not to delete him. How she called what we had pretending. And I put the phone back down. Because love isn't just about feeling, it's about choosing. And she stopped choosing me long before she whispered his name. I began rebuilding my life in small ways. New gym, new routines, new friends, even. It felt weird, stepping out into the world as a single man again. Not because I was afraid of being alone, but because I was still figuring out who I was without us. Turns out, I'm quieter than I remembered. I take long walks now. I read more. I listen better, to myself most of all. I started therapy. I told the whole story one night in a room with soft chairs and dim lights and a stranger who didn't flinch when I said, she whispered another man's name. He just nodded and said, that must have hurt. And it did. Still does, sometimes. But less than before. Months later, I got an email. From her. It was short. I heard you sold the house. I hope you're well. I think about you more than you know. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Not out of anger. Not to prove anything. But because some doors don't need to be opened again just to prove they're closed. I did sell the house. Too many memories in the walls. Too many echoes. I bought a small place outside the city. Quiet. Clean. Feels like a blank page. One morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought of her the night before. Not even once. That was the moment I knew I was healing. They say betrayal changes you. And it does. But not always into something broken. Sometimes, it changes you into someone awake. Someone who sees things sharper. Loves deeper, but not blindly. I still believe in love. I still believe in showing up for someone fully. But next time, I'll make sure they're showing up for me too. So here I am. No revenge plot. No cruel twist. No poetic justice. Just a man who loved, lost, and learned. She whispered another man's name in her sleep. But now, in the silence of this new life, I've finally remembered my own. And it sounds good to say it again, out loud, clear, and whole. Me. Just me. And I'm okay.